is up? YouTube singers, what is up? CKVX Studios, friends and family, how y'all doing? Welcome back to another episode of my CKVX Studios vlog, vocal video log. It is I, your host, Christopher Douglas Keller, and it's your co-host making a little appearance here. Say hey, buddy. Say hey, Zeus. He had to make his face seen. I think he's going to be in almost every video. That's pretty badass. Well, I love you too, buddy. I love you too. Yes, I do. All right. Well, Zeus, what do you say? What do you say, boy, that we get straight to it? Should we get to some questions? I think that's a yes. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. My first one from the comments section of my last video. This one is by Fahimuchi. Fahimuchi. Love the name. He said, excellent video, brother! Exclamation points. All right. I've been working a lot of pharyngeal mixed voice and hootie/rounded mixed voice around the first male bridge, which has helped me a lot. I also worked a lot with airflow stuff, which you have told me about 11 months ago, and it paid off. Very cool. Exclamation point. LOL. Exclamation point. My problem is just singing above the A4 smoothly, so the second bridge is my issue. I can hold the vowels up there nicely with a floating vibrato. I love that. Very cool. But the problem is happening when I try to sing a phrase. So what seems to be the problem here? Am I compressing the vocal cords too hard and not having enough airflow? Thanks, and read more. Advance. Cool. Eighth notes. Some more eighth notes. Oh, those could be triplets, I guess. I don't know. Very cool. Treble clef and 2 smiley faces. I love it. Famuchi. Very cool. All right, so he's talking about working with a lot of pharyngeal mixed voice, the hootie rounded voice, which is the hootie voice, the more rounded voice, the pharyngeal tone up here, right? And he's been working with a lot of this stuff, and it looks like he's got some trouble holding it together when he goes into the second bridge or past the second bridge. Or that it says the second bridge is an issue. Either way, between the first bridge to the second bridge, anywhere in there can definitely be a problem. He says that, am I over compressing? Do I not have enough airflow? That's a very good question, and what's funny to me is I actually have to ask myself that all the time. So asking yourself, am I over compressing, and do I have too much airflow? Am I not giving it enough natural compression? That's actually a extremely good question, and I can't answer that without hearing you. And I think if you're who I think you are, we talked on Facebook, so let's keep chatting, and tell you what, let's set something up, and you can send me a video or some audio or something, and we'll see what's going on. Really, that's really tough to answer without hearing, but I will say, when I'm singing a lot of stuff, especially if it's a new song, I have trouble sometimes finding that balance myself. The last video I was saying, going up with that ooh on Surely Heaven Waits for You from the Kansas song Carry On Wayward Son. Surely heaven waits for you. Holding that you. Do you overcompress it? Do you let the air flow? It's a balance. It's honestly a balance. And the truth is, there's no extreme, this is the only way to do it answer. I think it varies for the song. It varies for where it's at in your voice. It varies for where you are at as far as your vocal, how much you understand your own voice, your experience, etc. My number one suggestion without hearing you is to just keep experimenting. Experiment with more flow, experiment with more compression. First things first, always make sure when you're going into it, try your absolute best to just relax. That in itself will do so much for you. Just relax, chill, get into it, and start experimenting. I did a video a little while back for Jacob's Vocal Academy. There's 5 tips to singing easier, singing better, and one of the tips in that video was to experiment. And not enough of us experiment. We like someone to tell us exactly what to do, like, okay, got it, I'm going to fix the problem. But my entire life, if I ever wanted to tinker with something and take something apart and learn how it worked, you kind of had to just go and do it. We didn't have, I was a little kid, might be showing my age here, but when I was a little kid, I wasn't able to get online and look up a YouTube video on how to take something apart and how to fix it. You had to go to the library and find a book or a Popular Mechanics magazine or something lame like that. but you had to figure it out on your own for the most part. You didn't want to take the time to go to the library and all that stuff, so you had to figure it out. And I kind of took that approach to the voice. There's a lot of tutorials, there's a lot of instructional videos on YouTube, but truth is, only you can really figure out if you're overcompressing, if you're letting the airflow too much, if you're letting something loose or something might be getting too tight. You might be forgetting the consonant, or maybe you hit that consonant real hard, but it's too fast. So there's a lot of things you can do. There's really an infinite amount of possibilities you can do to get better at what you're doing. So I highly suggest for you, my brother, Famamucci, to experiment, man. And hit me up on Facebook. I know we've already been talking. Send me some audio clips or something, and we'll set up a lesson or something, and we'll go from there. All right, brother? Sounds good. Number 2, my man Anthony Davis. He said, "Wow!" Exclamation point. "Thank you so much. Your demonstration of vocal fry with airflow is hilarious." Smiley face. "You're welcome." Oh, I can't do it today. "You're welcome." Anyway, he said, "Oddly, I've never heard Seth Briggs or Brett Manning talking about false chords. It seems like either they're using different terminology or just don't know, or just don't show how to use them." You're kind of right. Honestly, it's not something that's really brought up a lot. Most singers, believe it or not, don't want to sing a lot of screaming stuff. They don't want to sing raspy. They don't want that grit. They like a nice, clean sound all through the range. Big dynamics with a clean sound. And me too. I love the ability to have an extremely clean sound. But I also like the ability to make it dirty and make it nasty. So I think that's kind of its own niche market. And of course, like we were talking about last time, there's plenty of other instructors that teach how to do that. One of them here being Melissa Cross, as we talked about last video. She said, "It's great to hear from you that Melissa's method is worth attention. I definitely think it is. What is the best way to combine it with SS/SLS? Have you encountered any contradictions between them?" No, I've actually, when I was younger, I won't lie. The thing is, you can technically make any vocal technique contradict with any other vocal technique, or make any vocal technique work with another vocal technique. Truth is, I've never had one technique I learned that I just never ever used again. And that goes back to when I was learning in high school and elementary school, some of the stuff. Elementary school, like they'd say, if you're, for the choir, when you're having trouble hitting a certain note, smile a little bit, get a little brighter with it, and you'll hit the note easier. And lo and behold, the whole classroom singing that song all of a sudden would be much better on the pitch. So the smiling itself, I think, is a little excessive. However, what did that smiling do? It got you to kind of bring it up a little bit and get out of the throat, right? So you're putting that placement up, making it much easier to sing. So when you're 12 years old, you don't understand placement. You don't even know what it feels like. You don't understand the difference. But as time goes on and you get older, you start understanding what the voice is and how it works. You start understanding what placement is. And you can look back at that and go, oh, yeah, that's why the teacher was telling me that. And some days, if you're struggling to find that pharyngeal voice, struggling to find that higher placement to hit that note way up there or glide into it, you go, oh, yeah, I remember Mrs. Smith back in 1994 told me to make sure that I had my smiley face on and to take a big breath and open my mouth. Those are kinds of things that you actually never forget. You can always go back to. And my students know I always tell them simple things. Take a big, deep breath. Just take a breath. Don't worry about it. Open your mouth. Don't be afraid to open your mouth when you go for that note. You can't sing like this. You got to open your mouth. So basics are always there. I've even used some opera-style techniques in order to sing some pop stuff and definitely Broadway. Some of that big, clean, classic rock stuff, some of those big, clean sounds from some of that classic rock stuff. I had, sometimes I would go back to some of that big, open technique. Not as much anymore, but I'm glad I know that because I also just learned more about the voice. So, answer to your question, Anthony, is I definitely think Melissa's method is worth attention. And as far as combining it with other methods like SS or SOS, you just do it. Don't think about it. You just do it. Nothing really contradicts itself unless you make it a contradiction. If one coach says, tip your chin in, I remember there's a time I said to do that. This was like 8, 9 years ago. I look back at it and I'm like, why did I ever say to do that? That makes no sense. I tell my students now just to be very natural because you wouldn't talk this way. But at the same time, I remember asking my old studio, I said, hey, could you remove some of those videos where I talked about tucking the chin in? I think that's wrong information. I don't teach that. I don't actually believe it now. I think it was kind of incorrect. And they said, we're not going to remove it because there's people out there that's actually going to help. I thought, yeah, but I've moved on from that. We should just skip that, and so can everyone else. But the truth is, I went through a phase where I thought tucking my chin in was going to make everything better. So it was a learning process for me. And if it was a learning process for me, it's probably going to be a learning process for someone else. Not everybody, but someone else might actually have trouble doing something. They're going to tuck their chin in and go, you know what? When I tucked my chin in, it really helped. But it wasn't tucking this in. I noticed when I did this, I made sure my larynx wasn't pulling up, or something in here wasn't happening. A certain muscle was more relaxed. So when I did this, all of a sudden it was way easier. So yeah, nothing contradicts itself unless you make it a contradiction. To me, it's just more and more tools. It's more colors to paint with. You're just increasing your palette. And it's, the con to that is sometimes you get so much information you don't know what works. And that's where the experimenting, that's where the practicing, that's where experience in general comes into play. You just got to get out and sing. And then sometimes you realize all that technical stuff, you might remember it here and there, but a lot of what you learn you might only use for a couple seconds here and there and move on, So there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's books that go back 200 years teaching singing, and a lot of those same techniques we just kind of rehash and redo in a modern way. I don't think any vocal coaches are really inventing anything. If someone says that, I think they're kind of, making themselves try to sound better, sell themselves. I don't think any vocal coach is really inventing anything anymore, but they're just kind of, it's like Taco Bell. They just kind of reinvent or create new products based from the same ingredients, if that makes sense. So once you have those ingredients, you can cook up whatever you want with your voice. So yes, nothing contradicts each other. Have fun, and most importantly, just experiment, and even more importantly, get out and sing. Simple as that. All right, so pretty cool. Another one here. Along came Josh, my man Josh, from I think it's England. He said, great video, Chris, ×7, exclamation point. Thank you, my brother. He said, one mistake I took from vocal programs was thinking too much about singing instead of actually singing. And I remember us talking about that a little bit. And this was, I think, a couple years ago. I think we worked on and off for several years, actually. He said, I think when I started out, I got worse because, quotations, what's my larynx doing? How's my tone? Am I mixed voice? Am I pulling up chest? He said, one thing I learned from you is to always start with the speaking voice and to stop thinking so much about the process of singing and just do it. He said, so thank you, exclamation point. Sorry, I don't have a question. That's all right, Josh. Props to you, brother. Check out my man Josh, Along Came Josh. He's been putting up some videos and stuff. I'm not sure if they're on his YouTube, but I've seen him on Facebook and his Instagram. I do remember him struggling. The truth is, he was definitely struggling, and his voice always had this kind of choral pretty sound, and it wasn't bad at all. It was nice, but he couldn't get that edgy commercial sound he was looking for. And then I remember, I think it was like a month ago, he posted a song, and he's just killing it. And I was listening, and I thought to myself, I don't think I've told you this yet, Josh, but I was like, damn, that dude's really come along. I was like, he sounds really good, man. He's going to start teaching and taking over my job. He's going to start stealing students from me. It was actually really impressive. So props to you, Josh. Just another example. Don't get too caught up in the vocal technique. Just get out and sing. Remember, your voice, your speaking voice, the voice you just naturally, easily use without thinking, that's your foundation to your singing voice for commercial music. Don't forget that. You always start with that and then build up from that. It's a lot easier to do that, to start with something very small. Have a lot of energy, a big open mind. Have a lot to work with your own voice. But it's just adding a little bit of technique here and there. It's not 200 techniques. Let's put them all together and then take parts out. It's more of just start real small. Just like you're cooking. Like I said earlier, like you're cooking. You just want a little bit of salt, a little bit of this, a little bit of this spice. You don't want to just dump everything in. You can't take everything out, right? Same thing with painting. You don't want to just put every color on the canvas and then remove things and paint over it. You'll have paint this thick on your canvas. So you start small. You just add a little bit here and there. And it sounds like that's what Josh is doing. And really, man, Josh, man, congrats, dude. You sound incredible. Check out my man, Along Came Josh. And last but not least, my man, Juan Diego, who has a channel on YouTube. He teaches a lot of Mexican guitar. He's incredible. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Super cool to work with. He's got over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Props to you, Juan. I've been working with Juan weekly for several months now, and he's an awesome dude. We just had a lesson today, and it was cool because I actually went over in his lesson what he asked here. And he said, "Hello, man, very friendly videos. Thanks, Juan, I appreciate it. I'm going to learn how to do my videos better off what you're doing, man, because you are killing it, my brother. You are killing it. Check out Juan Diego LB. You got to check out his videos, especially the music he plays is so uplifting. It's so cool, and he's a killer guitar player." He says, how to get better the quality of the tone, because when I sing, I have good pitch control. I still don't like the color of my voice. What are the things related with tone? Question mark. See you later. Awesome teacher. Exclamation point, exclamation point. Juan, awesome dude. Again, great lesson today. Basically, what I went over with Juan today, and we talked about this, Juan has been struggling a little bit with his vocal tone. He's this killer, amazing, relaxed, chill, calm guitar player. And when he sings, sometimes he second guesses himself too much. You do, Juan. So he second guesses himself a little bit, and he overthinks it. And I think I can relate because I grew up playing piano, and of course then singing. And I was very comfortable on piano. I think I got to the point I was too comfortable. I honestly got burnt out. I was very comfortable on piano, and I was very comfortable for the most part singing. And when I started learning guitar, it was frustrating because I knew what good guitar playing sounded like. I knew what good music was. I had a lot of great guitar player friends. And so when I would play, I knew I was frustrated that I had to kind of start from scratch with the progress. And when you are starting music in general from scratch, it's hard to know what's good and what's not. You're kind of learning everything. But when you already know what it's like to learn an instrument, you know what it's like to not be good, knowing what it's going to take to get better, sometimes you get a little in your head. Sometimes you get a little ahead of yourself. And Juan's a good example of that because he's this phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal musician. But I can relate because I know what it's like to get a little frustrated when the instrument you're learning isn't as comfortable as the other instrument you're doing very well. And sometimes it feels like it's kind of holding you back from doing what you want to do. So if you're a guitar player and you're great at guitar and you're working on singing, it's easy to get frustrated with singing because if your singing was better, you could enjoy playing guitar more because you can do them both together. And same thing with singing. Sometimes man, I feel like I'm a great singer, but my guitar playing's not up to chops. So when you perform, you actually hold back with your singing because you're worried about your guitar. So I know where Juan's coming from. And basically, when you ask a lot about tone, there's two big things we went over. Number one, related to the guitar again, when you first start playing guitar and you don't know much about guitar, it's really easy to not know the difference between a good sounding guitar and a bad sounding guitar. You can, of course, someone says this is a $3,000 guitar, this is a $300 guitar, and you can say, oh, of course, the $3,000 guitar sounds better. But you don't really know why. And if someone said explain it, you could say, I don't know. And you could think, well, it sounds cleaner. It sounds louder. All those things don't really make it sound better, but it sounds better, but you can't explain why. So singing's the same way. When you're kind of new to singing, a lot of times the tone and hearing it, feeling it, creating it in general, it takes a little bit of time. And truth is, you might have a good musical ear, but it's still a new instrument. And yes, you've been using it your whole life, but you haven't used it this way. So just like kind of getting used to holding the guitar, learning what pick works better for you and why a certain pick works better for a certain guitar than others, and why this guitar works better for this style of music than this music. The voice is the same way. You start learning why certain techniques apply to certain styles of music, certain techniques, how they apply to your tone in general, and why your tone, sometimes you need to do it a certain way, and then sometimes you need to do it another way. And it depends on the song, and that's part of learning. So you got to be patient. You got to be patient. Just like guitar, piano, whatever, if you've been playing it for 20 years, you know the difference. You know the difference in tones. You can feel every little intricate detail in the instrument you're playing. You know what makes one better than another. And you can make it work for the style of music you're doing or for the song. And you also learn with guitar, it's not about necessarily dropping a lot of money. That's right, boy. It's about your fingers. At the end of the day, 98% of your tone comes from these things, right? So same thing with your voice. 98% of that tone is going to come from the voice you already have. That other 2% comes from a little technical stuff here and there, but the rest of it, you just got to dig in and do it, play it, and enjoy it. And one of the easy ways to enjoy it more, and this is what we worked on with Juan today, with singing, let's be real here, a lot of us like to immediately want to sing the high notes. We think, I'm going to challenge myself and sing a tougher song. When it comes to tone, a lot of us forget that tone doesn't just mean singing high notes with good tone. It means singing the entire song with good tone, all right? Tone is extremely important on the low notes. In fact, I would say it's almost more important on the low notes, because the high note, a lot of time when we hit the high note itself, as long as it's kind of on the pitch, pretty close, let's be real here, as long as it's really close to the pitch, 99% of the people listening, they're not going to be able to tell much of a difference. They're really not, all right? But when you're singing low, the more relaxed part of a song, maybe the first verse, the second verse, for me, that's the toughest part of singing a song. It's not the chorus, it's not the high notes. And of course you can say that, oh, Chris, you know what you're doing with the high notes. That's true, but I'm telling you, the first verse of a song, that first line, oh my gosh, if I have to record a song, that first line, I spend more time on that than anything else in the entire song, because that's where I really want to nail that tone down. So my suggestion to start working on your tone for anybody is to take a song that's almost so easy in your range, it's almost laughable. Like it actually feels like you don't have to try at all. And it almost is insulting to yourself to do that. Like, why am I even doing this? I'm wasting my time. It's like I'm not even trying. Yes, exactly. Because when you're not trying, your tone's actually not that bad. And if you sit back and listen, you'd be surprised. And a lot of those techniques that you can do, the little bit higher in the pharyngeal tone, getting out of that low spot right here, getting more up here, staying more balanced with it. Big breaths, flowing, focusing on the consonants, geminating them. The fricatives, as my student Lee and I talked about one time. Fricatives, check it out. Fricatives, gemination. I have a blog post on gemination on my website. But all those things you work on when you sing low and easy, and you build those good habits, and your tone's going to be ridiculously better. It won't even take long, just 2 or 3 months, and you'll be like, wow, my tone's greatly improved. Now, you still might have trouble doing it on the high notes, but there you have a reference point now. So if you have trouble doing it on the low end, you're definitely going to have trouble doing it on the high end. But if you can really nail that real chill, laid back tone on the bottom when you're singing something real easy, you always look back at that and say, if I could sing that easy, I can sing the higher stuff easy. And that's the truth. The high notes are just that. They're high notes. You don't really have to make all these alterations to hit the high notes. All you got to do is just sing high and stay out of your own way. All right? So, leaving y'all with that, okay? I want you to get a song that's easy, ridiculous easy. So easy, it pisses you off and you think you're not even improving and it's almost a joke. That's how easy it should be. Spend 20 minutes doing that, and I promise you, you're actually going to learn a lot about your voice. So thanks, y'all. Ask some more questions. I'll catch y'all in a little bit. Take it easy.